Aristotle, one of the most influential thinkers in the history of humankind, was born in 384 BC in the small Greek city of Stagira on the Chalcidice Peninsula. His father, Nicomachus, was the personal physician to King Amyntas III of Macedon, which gave Aristotle early exposure to medicine, biology, and the natural sciences. This background shaped his curiosity and directed him toward the observation of nature and humanity with a remarkable sense for detail and empirical inquiry. After losing both parents at a young age, Aristotle came under the care of relatives, and at the age of 17, he went to Athens to study at Plato's Academy, then the most renowned school of philosophy in the Greek world. He spent nearly 20 years at the Academy, becoming one of Plato's most prominent students, although there was a profound gap between teacher and student on fundamental philosophical questions. Plato emphasized the world of ideas as true reality, while Aristotle believed that essence must be sought in the very things we perceive, not beyond them. This divergence did not sever their personal relationship, but clearly marked different directions in their philosophical journeys. When Plato died, Aristotle did not assume leadership of the Academy, but instead left Athens, beginning a long period of travel and research. He first went to Aterneus in Asia Minor, where he lived at the court of Hermias, a local ruler and tyrant. There he joined intellectual circles and married Hermias's niece, Pythias, with whom he had a daughter. After Hermias's death, Aristotle moved to the island of Lesbos, where he spent years devoted to studying plant and animal life, particularly marine organisms. His writings from that period reveal extraordinary systematization and commitment to empirical observation. These works laid the foundations of biology as a science. Aristotle recorded descriptions of more than 500 species of animals and attempted to establish the laws of their functioning. His life took a decisive turn in 343 BC when King Philip II of Macedon invited him to tutor his son Alexander, later known as Alexander the Great. Aristotle accepted and spent several years at the court in Pella, where he educated the young prince in Greek culture, rhetoric, philosophy, and science. Although it is not entirely clear how much Aristotle truly influenced Alexander's future politics and conquests, the fact remains that Alexander, upon embarking on his campaigns eastward, demonstrated a deep appreciation for Greek culture and learning, something that can at least partially be attributed to his teacher. Once Alexander ascended to the throne, Aristotle returned to Athens and founded his own school, the Lyceum. This was the moment when Aristotle's philosophical system fully unfolded. At the Lyceum, students would walk with him in the gardens and discuss various subjects, which earned them the name Peripatetics. During this period, Aristotle wrote most of his works, covering almost every field of knowledge of his time: logic, metaphysics, ethics, politics, rhetoric, poetics, physics, biology, and astronomy. His approach was encyclopedic, seeking to unify and systematize knowledge so that everything had its place and reason. One of his key innovations was formal logic. Aristotle developed the syllogism, a form of reasoning in which two premises necessarily lead to a conclusion. While logic today encompasses much more complex systems, Aristotelian logic dominated for more than 2,000 years and became the fundamental tool of European thought. He referred to logic as an instrument, or organon, because it served as a tool for every other discipline. In addition, Aristotle introduced a clear division of knowledge into theoretical, practical, and productive, emphasizing the differences between knowledge, ethical action, and artistic creation. A particularly important field of Aristotle's philosophy was ethics. In his Nicomachean Ethics, dedicated to his father, he developed the idea that the goal of human life is to achieve happiness, eudaimonia. For Aristotle, happiness was not fleeting pleasure, but a state of fulfillment and realization of human nature through virtue. Virtue, in his view, is always a mean between two extremes. For example, courage is the mean between cowardice and reckless boldness. Human life, according to Aristotle, is perfected through prudence, justice, and wisdom. and true happiness is possible only within a community and through active pursuit of virtue. In political philosophy, Aristotle sought to identify the best form of government. In his work, Politics, he analyzed various systems, monarchy, aristocracy, and polity, as well as their corrupted forms, tyranny, oligarchy, and democracy. Unlike Plato, who leaned toward idealized models, Aristotle relied on experience and the study of actual constitutions. He believed that man is by nature a zoon politikon, a social and political being who achieves completeness only in community. The best state, in his view, is one where stability and balance prevail, where laws govern, and where citizens participate in the common good. Beyond politics and ethics, Aristotle also wrote about art. His Poetics remains the most influential treatise on literature in the Western tradition. There he analyzed tragedy, emphasizing that its purpose was to evoke catharsis, a purification of emotions of fear and pity in the audience. He examined the structure of drama, the function of plot, and the characterization of figures, leaving a legacy that shaped European literary and theatrical theory until the modern age. One interesting fact about Aristotle is that although today he is celebrated as one of the greatest philosophers, in his own time he was not considered beyond reproach. The Athenians viewed him with suspicion due to his ties with the Macedonians, and after Alexander's death, his position in Athens became precarious. He was accused of impiety, much like Socrates before him, and to avoid the fate of drinking poison, he fled to Chalcis, where he died in 322 BC. Aristotle himself is said to have remarked that he withdrew from Athens so that the Athenians might not sin twice against philosophy. His legacy was not immediately recognized in full. His work survived thanks to his students, particularly Theophrastus, who continued leading the Lyceum. During the Hellenistic and Roman periods, Aristotelian philosophy experienced periods of prominence and decline, but in the Middle Ages, it resurfaced thanks to Arabic translators and commentators such as Avicenna and Averroes. Through their efforts, Aristotle's thought became central to medieval scholasticism, especially in the writings of Thomas Aquinas. Thus, Aristotle became the foundation of the entire Western intellectual tradition. Aristotle's philosophy, beyond ethics, politics, and logic, extended significantly into the realm of natural sciences. His interest in biology, anatomy, and natural processes was unusually intense and based on direct observation. Unlike Plato, who sought symbolism and ideal forms in natural phenomena, Aristotle recorded facts, described species, and attempted to classification. In his writings, we find detailed accounts of the anatomy of fish, birds, and mammals, observations of animal behavior, and studies of plant processes. Although many of his claims are not considered accurate today, the very fact that he systematically and methodically observed nature was revolutionary. For instance, he was among the first to recognize the function of the heart as the central organ in the circulatory system, even though he mistakenly believed the brain served only to cool the blood.
Aristotle's method of inquiry was empirical, but never merely factual. He always sought causes, and his famous principle for explaining the world was based on the so-called four causes. To understand why something exists or how it functions, Aristotle argued that one must consider four aspects: the material cause, what something is made of; the formal cause, its shape or structure; the efficient cause, the agent or creator; and the final cause, the purpose for which it exists. This teleological perspective, in which every entity has meaning and purpose, dominated his thinking about nature. His physics and cosmology were deeply influenced by this teleological view. Aristotle believed the world had a hierarchical structure, the Earth at the center, surrounded by concentric spheres carrying celestial bodies. This geocentric model prevailed until Copernicus and Galileo. Celestial bodies, he argued, moved in perfect circles, while terrestrial objects were subject to change and decay. Aristotle distinguished the sublunar world, the world of change, from the supralunar world, the world of celestial perfection. This dichotomy shaped medieval astronomy and natural philosophy. Aristotle's understanding of the soul was particularly notable. He considered the soul not as an immortal substance separate from the body, but as the form of life that animates the body. He distinguished three types of soul: the vegetative, belonging to plants, responsible for growth and nutrition; the sensitive, belonging to animals, enabling movement and perception; and the rational, unique to humans, enabling thought and knowledge. This framework attempted to explain differences among living beings and provided a philosophical basis for understanding humans as the highest entities in the natural order. Aristotle's perception of art and literature, previously mentioned through his Poetics, demonstrates his ability to discern deep psychological mechanisms. He asserted that art imitates life, but in a way that reveals universal truths. His analysis of tragedy, emphasizing catharsis, was among the first attempts to explain why humans seek artistic experiences. Besides tragedy, he wrote on epic poetry, though his works on comedy have not survived. In his Rhetoric, he examined the power of speech and persuasion, systematized figures of speech and argumentative strategies, and laid the foundation for rhetorical theory that endures today. In Metaphysics, Aristotle sought answers to profound questions about being and existence. His metaphysics began with the view that being can be approached from different aspects, yet the central idea is the distinction between potentiality and actuality. Everything that exists can be in potentiality, as a possibility, or in actuality, as a realized state. For example, a seed is potentially a tree, and when it grows, it becomes an actual tree. This concept allowed him to explain change and movement without resorting to Plato's world of ideas. The highest actuality, Aristotle argued, is the unmoved mover, a perfect being who exists in pure actuality and whose existence draws everything else toward perfection. This first mover concept became his notion of the divine and profoundly influenced Christian theology later. An interesting fact about Aristotle is his writing style. Most of the works that have survived were not intended for a general audience, but were notes and lecture materials for the Lyceum. As a result, his writings are often fragmentary, dense, and filled with technical terms. Contemporaries noted that he wrote more elegantly in his youth, but those works are lost. There was also an anecdote that when Aristotle once asked his student Theophrastus why people considered him a better speaker, he was told, "Because you speak like Aristotle, and I speak like ordinary men." Aristotle's impact on later philosophy and science is immeasurable. In the Hellenistic period, his works were copied and circulated, but it was through Arabic translators that his philosophy was rediscovered in full during the Middle Ages. Avicenna called Aristotle the first teacher, and Averroes regarded him as the greatest authority in philosophy. In the Latin tradition, Thomas Aquinas integrated him into Christian theology, calling him the philosopher. His logic became a required part of university education, and his metaphysics and ethics remained central to debates about the nature of God, humans, and the world for centuries. However, though Aristotle was an unparalleled authority, Renaissance scientists began to challenge him. Copernicus, Galileo, and Kepler overturned his cosmological assumptions. Biologists and anatomists pointed out errors in his observations. Yet the very fact
that he was a constant reference and authority ensured that his works continued to be read and contested, which in turn drove the development of science. In this sense, Aristotle's contribution lies not in always being correct, but in posing questions and providing a system that inspired centuries of inquiry. Aristotle was also a man who appreciated life and society. He reportedly enjoyed fine things, liked clothing and wine, and was not an ascetic like his teacher Plato. He was pragmatic, striving to connect knowledge with daily life and practical action. His ideal of wisdom was not withdrawal from the world, but active participation with prudence and moderation. This is why his ethics emphasize moderation rather than radical renunciation. His death in Chalcis in 322 BC marked the end of an era, but also the beginning of a tradition that never faded. Although the Athenians tried to condemn him, Aristotle managed to avoid the fate of Socrates. Still, his withdrawal from Athens was a bitter reminder of the tension between philosophers and politics. He believed in the power of reason and education, but recognized that politics always involves interests and passions. Today, Aristotle remains a model of universal intellect. Few individuals in history have attempted to encompass all knowledge of their time and systematize it as he did. His influence on philosophy, literature, science, theology, and culture is immeasurable. Even when we oppose his ideas, as modern scientists do, we do so in reference to him. His spirit is felt in every attempt to organize knowledge, analyze ethics as the pursuit of happiness, analyze art in its forms, and comprehend humans as beings whose fulfillment lies in community and reason. Interestingly, Aristotle, though Greek, played a key role in shaping civilization far beyond the Hellenic world. His ideas traveled east to the Arab and Persian worlds, then returned to Europe via Spain and Sicily, becoming the backbone of university education. Aristotle can truly be regarded as a universal philosopher of humanity. His questions about purpose, meaning, nature, and happiness remain as relevant today as ever. Since every era faces the same dilemmas: what is good, what is just, how to know, and how to live.